Welcome to our webinar tonight. 3 things you must know to reduce arm and shoulder pain. I'm so glad you're joining me today, and some of you will be joining me on a recording later. We have a couple things we need to cover in advance, and I just want to say what you will need for this webcast. First of all, it is a one-way webcast, so only I will be talking. You will not be talking to me, but you can email me questions and I will address those at the end. I'll give you that email address in a little bit. But here's what you'll need tonight. You'll need a pencil. You'll need the body outline that I told you in the email to download from the web and print. So hopefully you've got that and you've printed it out already. You will hopefully be wearing some comfortable clothes so that you can move a little bit. If you can have your instrument, that'd be great because we're going to be doing some playing. And a little space around you because we'll be doing a little bit of moving. Now I am recording this. Unfortunately, I just found out today that the program that I'm using to run the webinar does not do video recording. It will not record my webcam. So I'm trying another program to see if that'll work. That'll record my whole screen. So if you're listening on a recording, you may not be seeing me, but we'll find out and I'll let you know tomorrow when I send out the email. So if you could take out your picture that looks like this and your pencil, and I'm going to ask you to draw in that picture your idea of what the bone structure of the arms is. What is your arm structure? What are the bones involved? What are the joints involved? You don't have to go into the detail of every finger joint, but just a general idea. This is your map, your idea, your conception in your brain of how your arm structure is put together. And while you're doing that, I'll tell you a little bit about the background of this webcast. I'll also be switching back and forth between the video and PowerPoint. Most of it will be PowerPoint slides and pictures, but I'll go back and forth and turn on the PowerPoint and off, so hopefully I'll be able to do that because I got to tell you right now, this is my very first webcast and it's been a steep learning curve. So if you bear with me if there's a glitch or two, I think we're going to be just fine. Why am I doing this webcast? Well, you probably know that there are a lot of musicians in pain. The figures have been pretty consistent for about 20 years now. 75% of professional musicians, 75 to 80 actually, are in pain or have an injury during some point in their career. I consider that an epidemic. I don't know how we got to that point, but it's not a good thing. What we know now is that a lot of that pain does not come from medical or organic causes. It can be quite frequently just simply the way we are using our bodies when we play our instrument. But the problem is we're not really that aware of how we're using our bodies when we're playing the instrument. We can do a video, we can ask other people to observe us, but we really don't know that much. We're not taught how to observe these things. So it turns out that what's helpful to a lot of people is private and individual coaching from somebody who is trained to know how the body's designed to work, who's trained in movement, and can really give individual feedback on what's going on. Obviously, in a webcast like this, I can't be giving you individual feedback, but I wanted to give you an idea of some of what the ways that we teach are and what body mapping is, how we teach that, and how you can use the information to change the way that you are moving. A little bit of an experience of that. And I wanted to share some really important information about arm use that actually very few people know. So I hope that this will be useful to you, good information, and that you'll be able to apply it to your work. We're going to be doing a little bit of playing so you can try some things out while we're doing this and ask me questions at the end. For those of you who don't know me, I actually went through a lot to get to this point. When I was in college, age 18, my left arm started to go numb. And I didn't know what that was all about. I asked my teachers, they didn't know how to help me. I didn't know what to do. So I just decided, well, I have to play less. Well, I was a music education and psychology major, but sometimes I was playing 8 hours a day with rehearsals and practicing. I was really lost. And unfortunately, it was 30 years of playing in pain before I could get the help that I needed. And I was very grateful when I was in my late 40s to meet and be able to work with Barbara Conable, an Alexander Technique teacher. And I'll tell you a little bit more about her later. I finally got the personal attention that I needed and wanted, and I was able to make the changes. It took a while because I had a lot of bad habits and a lot of misunderstandings, but I was able to make the changes I needed to be able to play free of pain. I needed that outside perspective to help me observe what I was doing that was contributing to my pain. And I want to pause here for a second to say that those of you who are joining us right now, I know people are still coming in, if you could take out your drawing that you've printed up, or if you don't have this, just take a blank piece of paper and make a drawing of your idea of what the bones in your arms look like. We want to see what your map is. Nobody's going to be looking at it, just you, but it'll be helpful to you tonight. So what helped me most in recovering from the terrible bad habits that I have was really learning how the body is designed to work. I had a lot of misconceptions. I didn't really understand how to sit or how to stand, how my arms worked, how to get support from the ground. I basically had to relearn everything about the musculoskeletal structure of the body. Now, a lot of that work I did on my own, studying anatomy, developing my kinesthetic sense, using video, increasing my awareness of my body, but I really needed that outside perspective of an expert who could watch me, see what I was doing, and help me make the changes. Well, Barbara Conable was an Alexander Technique teacher, and she saved the careers of hundreds of musicians, including mine. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't be here doing this. She was absolutely brilliant about understanding what musicians needed in order to be able to improve their ability to play. And she developed the course, What Every Musician Needs to Know About the Body. It's a course that all Andover educators can teach. She began training musicians to teach this course, and I was very honored to be among the first group of people that she trained. So I wanted to tell you that much of the content of what we're doing tonight was created by Barbara, and we owe a great debt to her genius in organizing this information and making it available to us. But because I played in pain for 30 years, and I had to give up playing several times, I can't bear to see other people suffer the way that I suffered. So I wrote my book, Body Mapping for Flutists, and I've spent the last 15 years working with musicians to help them find the kind of freedom and expression and movement that I know is possible. This work is really important to me because I know firsthand the frustration of not being able to play the way you want. I understand the emotional pain that comes from that physical discomfort at doing the one thing you've trained your whole life to do. I used to just look at my flute and cry because it hurt so much to play, and I just didn't know what to do. I know from working with hundreds of musicians that it is possible to eliminate playing-induced pain. And if you're someone like I was, someone who hurts when you play, I want you to know that there is hope. We can learn how our bodies are designed to work and work with that design. We can become aware of how we're using our bodies, and we can change our habits of movement that create pain. We can do a lot of this on our own, but sometimes we need feedback from others. So at the end of the webcast today, I'm going to give you some resources to follow up with, and I want to provide you with an opportunity to receive some private coaching. I really craved that personal attention to help me make the changes I needed, and I want to make it possible for you to have that kind of help if it's going to be useful to you. So here we are. What we're going to cover tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about that. The issue of arm use and hand-arm pain is just huge among musicians who need to use their arms and hands to create sound. We could spend hours on this very topic. But what I've decided to do is pick the three things that I think are the most important in the big picture of understanding arm and hand use. And that's what I want to share with you tonight. We're going to talk about support for arms. We're going to talk about balance and support for the head. That's the second big item. And we're going to talk about the third thing, nerve and blood pathways to the hand. Now, there's lots more that we could cover, including arm joints and rotations and all kinds of stuff. But we'll just have to do that another time because we only have an hour and a half tonight. So here's the email address if you have questions. And I'm going to actually put this in PowerPoint and show it to you on my screen. Let's see if that works. Hit play. Wait for this to come through. It's my personal email address, leapearson@mac.com, LeaPearson @mac.com. And if you would put webcast in the subject line, so I'll know to separate that out and look at that from all the other emails that I might be getting. And then I will save time at the end of the webcast to address your questions. Now, I know a lot of you in your registration wrote some of the issues that you're concerned about and you'd like to learn about. And I'm going to try to bring those in whenever I can during this time. But if I don't get to your issue, please send me an email and ask me a question. So this is the content of the course. The whole course is organized by Andover educators teaching the art of movement in music. And the things we're talking about tonight, 3 things you need to know to conquer arm and shoulder pain and increase your playing ability. And the course content was created by Barbara Conable and myself with several images by different people, most of them by Benjamin Conable, Tim Phelps, David Gorman, and Jack Paulus. So I wanted you to have that information. When we talk about arms, we want to really be on the same page about what is the arm structure. Lots of us think of our arms as, just the forearm and the upper arm. But in fact, the arm structure contains everything you see in this picture. And I'll bring out my model here. It contains the collarbone, the shoulder blade, which are connected, the upper arm bone, the lower arm bones, the wrists, and the hand. All of that is part of what we call the arm structure. Now, obviously, we have one on each side, and when you put them together, this is what doctors call the shoulder girdle. Now, what is a girdle? Some of you may remember what that is. It's something that encircles something else. And what does this arm structure encircle? Here's my friend Zeke, who's going to help you see that. Hi. The arm structure, the collarbones, shoulder blades, and these arm bones, encircles the spine. So we're going to be talking about the arm structure in relation to the spine quite a bit. And you can, if you just put your fingers on your collarbones and move them around a little bit, you can feel that your arms, your collarbones, and your shoulder blades are all moving. It's all a unit. Great. So the first topic is support for arms. So ask yourself this question: how do you think about support for arms? What do you think holds up the arms? What's the work involved in that? What's the system of support? There are really 2 main aspects of it. And these are things that have not really been very clear and things that actually I didn't know much about until I really spent some time thinking about it in the last few years. The 2 main kinds are, one, this shoulder girdle, this arm structure is attached to your sternum. So it kind of rides over the ribs, and we're going to talk about that. And the second part is that it's suspended from the skull. We're going to go into great detail about that. So let's talk about the first one. If you look at this joint where the sternum is, you can find your sternum and then you can touch the collarbones, the ends of the collarbones, and kind of roll your shoulders around and feel where those collarbones join the sternum. That's the only place which that shoulder girdle, that arm structure, is actually attached to the skeleton. In the back, those shoulder blades are free floating. They just move around. Everything is encased in muscle and connective tissue. But this is the one place where we're actually connected bone to bone. And you can see, if you think about it, that the sternum is supported, connected to the ribs. And the ribs are supported by the spine. So this whole shoulder girdle that encircles around the spine is actually indirectly also connected to the spine. But the arm structure does not really rest on the ribs. It's not pulled down and sitting on top of the ribs. It's actually free floating. My colleague Jennifer Johnston likes to say free range shoulder blades. We don't want to have the feeling that it's stuck or attached or pulled down. We want a lot of space between our arms and our ribs. So that's the first thing I want you to think about. The second aspect of it is how they are suspended from the skull. And I used to know that, I understood that there was some suspension involved in the arm structure, but I didn't really understand how it worked until I started studying the pictures in the anatomy coloring book by Capet and Nelson. And this picture is from there. It's a wonderful book. You should get it if you don't have it, because you can learn a whole lot about how the body works. So take a look at these pink and purple muscles, if you would. The first big one is the sternocleidomastoid, and that goes from the base of your skull here down to, you can see there's two bottoms of it. It attaches to the collarbone and the sternum. It's that big muscle that you see when people turn their neck and it kind of sticks out, or if they have really tight muscles, it kind of can be very ropey. It looks like a rope. Notice that it attaches in those two places. So if you lift your collarbone, you're actually shortening that sternocleidomastoid muscle. The second muscle I want you to look at is the trapezius. And that goes from the base of your skull in the back. I'll show you with Zeke here. So it goes from the base of the skull out to the corners of the shoulder blades right here. And you'll see in the picture, the bottom of that pink muscle attaches to both the shoulder blade and the collarbone. So again, when you're lifting your shoulders, it's the trapezius muscle that is shortening and pulling those shoulders up. Now you can see there's some green muscles in the inside there, and I want to take a look at those. Those green muscles are the scalenes. And the two important ones that we're going to talk about right now are the ones that go from, again, the base of the skull, and these attach to the shoulder blade in the back. All right, so they're coming from the skull, from the skull down and touch the shoulder blade here. So again, when you lift your shoulders, you're shortening those muscles that are connecting to the skull. Now the interesting thing is that neck muscles have a lot of jobs. These are all neck muscles. They have to turn the head and move the head up and down. Some of those scalenes, the ones on the inside there, actually have to lift your top ribs when you breathe. Some of the neck muscles have to stabilize things or help stabilize your arm structure when you're doing other things. They have a ton of different jobs, and somehow they know what to do if we don't get in the way. But when we start to use those neck muscles to hold ourselves up or to hold up our arms, we start to keep them from being able to do what they really want and need to be able to do. Now we're going to take a look at the muscles in front. These are the hyoid muscles, and they're attached to the hyoid bone, that little bone in there, which kind of anchors the larynx, and it anchors our neck muscles too, so they don't drop down and we don't all look like turkeys, because I know you don't want to look like a turkey. But there are several muscles that go from the hyoid bone. Look at the light blue one there. It goes down and attaches to the sternum and the collarbone. So there's this big connection right here. And then you'll see that the other blue one goes from the hyoid bone down through a little ligament on the collarbone and in to the inside of the shoulder blade. So we're looking at a muscle that goes from here across through the collarbone, by the collarbone, and into the inside of the shoulder blade. This is really huge because it means to me that whatever we're doing with these shoulders has a huge direct connection to everything that's going on up here. The voice, the neck muscles, the whole works of it. There's the place where it attaches to the inside of the shoulder blade. This is a big deal, understanding that this whole shoulder girdle is literally suspended from the skull. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of connective tissue involved and some other muscles, but I'm not going to go into that detail tonight because that's really more anatomy than you need to know. But we need to know this is what is the main support for our arm structure. They're not so much held up from underneath as they are suspended from above. So let's do a little experiment. Why don't you just shrug your shoulders? Feel, them moving up and down. Put your hands down by your side and notice, when I shrug my shoulders, my hands are also moving. So that means there's a direct connection to your fingers from the neck. Now, with your shoulders up, go ahead and move your arms around. I'm going to try to move in very slow-mo because if I move too fast, it's going to get all weird in the picture. It's going to get kind of jerky. So just move your arms around with those shoulders shrugged. If it hurts, don't do it, but see what that feels like. Your neck muscles are shortened. Now, drop those, let those shoulders hang, your neck muscles nice and free and long, and move your arms around again. See what kind of range of motion you can get, what kind of fluidity. How do they feel different? It's really an interesting way to think about this. What I'm doing with my neck muscles is affecting how I can move my arms and therefore how I can move my fingers. So let's think a little bit about what we just said. And I'm going to give you several opportunities today to make notes. You can write on this paper that you have or just jot some things down on a piece of paper. So we've just talked about how the arm structure is supported by the sternum, attached to the sternum, and riding over the ribs, this whole shoulder girdle structure. But we've also talked about how it is literally suspended from the skull. So make a note of anything that you want to remember, something that you think is useful to you. Okay, welcome to anybody who has just joined us. If you haven't done it yet, this is what we were doing, drawing a picture of our idea of what the arm structure looked like in that outline. So obviously, here's the